It's time for another gardening update, so let's get out there and see what's going on. The potatoes in the straw are doing well, but they're a little stressed because of our wild temperature swings. One week we were in the 60s or about 18 degrees Celsius, and the next week we were in the 90s or about 34 degrees Celsius. It also stressed the peppers a little bit, like this black pepper, because they hadn't had time for the roots to spread out. With some plants like this one, I removed the peppers, and that helped them deal with the stress a lot easier. Now that they've had about a week to adjust to the hotter temperatures, they'll be just fine. Pippin's Golden Honey is one that I've never grown before. The peppers start out yellow, and then they change to purple. I usually grow a couple of Oda pepper plants because they're a good, dependable little pepper. Here's a look at some Oda peppers that I harvested a few years ago. As you can see from the leaves on this Buena Mulata plant, it's a little bit stressed. I removed those peppers so it wouldn't have to support them. I kept the plants watered, and now that they've had a week to adjust to the heat, they'll be just fine for the rest of the summer. I left the peppers on this candy cane sweet pepper because it was dealing with the heat a little bit better. This Jimmy Nardello pepper already has some peppers on it too. I had several questions about the red solo cups. I cut the bottoms out of those and used them to keep cutworms out. I did a video on that, and I'll put a link to that video down below. The new growth on this ají dulce is looking very good. This real black eggplant is off to a pretty good start, and I haven't noticed any flea beetles on it yet. But it does have a ladybug. For those of you who are new to gardening, ladybugs like to eat aphids. This is what ladybug larvae look like. Ladybugs and their larvae can eat dozens of ladybugs per day. And this is what their eggs look like, in case you ever see any in your garden. I have this long purple eggplant growing in a 10-gallon grow bag. I like to keep an eye out for flea beetles on my eggplants, and this one has one. Flea beetles are tiny little black beetles. They eat holes in the eggplant leaves. Here's a short look at some of our irises. I like to breed irises just for the fun of it and create new types each year. Sometimes it takes them several years to bloom for the first time. The potatoes in the grow bags are doing very well, even though they did get a little stressed from the heat. That's why it's important to take a look at your plants every day just to see how they're doing. In this 10-gallon grow bag, I have a dwarf tomato called Banana Toes. It only grows to about 2 feet tall. In this grow bag, I have both variations of my F4 Black Pearl hybrids. I stuck these outside when it was very cold and had to put them in the garage a few nights when it froze. They got very stressed from that treatment, but they're coming back really nicely now. Here's what those same pepper plants look like indoors in February. As you can see, the peppers are very dark. I already have the F5s growing, so I thought it might be fun to compare the F4s to the F5s side by side once they both have peppers on them. And here's a look at those F5s. I have 4 of them growing in this 10-gallon grow bag, and now that it's warming up, those will take off and grow pretty quickly. In this 10-gallon grow bag, I have an albino bullnose pepper and another sweet pepper that I've never grown before. I usually try to grow at least one albino bullnose pepper plant each year. I have a single shishito pepper growing in this 10-gallon grow bag. That's one of our favorites. I'm trying several different ornamental sweet potatoes. This one is called Sweet Carolina Bewitched After Midnight. This one is simply called Red Heart. The herbs in the 5-gallon grow bags are starting to show signs of life now that it got warmer. It seems like the Musa Basjoo bananas have taken off quicker than they ever have. They're already taller than I am. We got a lot of rain when the weather was cooler, and I think they really like that. Back behind the bananas on the other end of the shed are the blackberry canes, and I think you can see the blooms on them. We probably won't get very many, but I think we'll enjoy what we get. The garlic's starting to grow pretty well. It'll be interesting to see how that does. It hasn't been a very good year for cold weather crops like lettuce because we went from cool weather to hot weather with no warm weather in between. I'm a little behind on thinning the carrots and the lettuce, and I hope to get to that soon. The tomatoes in this row are Mary's Cherry, Audrey's Love, and finally Chocolate Champion. The tomatoes never showed any stress from the heat. This Audrey's Love was about 2 feet tall when I planted it. I made a trench. The root ball is way down here, and then I buried the rest of the stem underground. In a few weeks, roots will form all along that stem and make this plant have a much healthier root system. This is Matoyo eggplant, and it's my favorite eggplant to eat. It's got a couple of shabby looking lower leaves, so I'm just going to cut those off. That way the plant won't have to support those, and it'll look better. I have several peppers from my Purple Flash project growing in this 10-gallon grow bag, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how some of these projects go this summer. Sweet potatoes like it hot, so these sweet potatoes in the straw bales should take off and grow very well now. About all I have to do is keep them watered, and then at the end of the summer I should get a nice harvest. The corn is coming up very thick in some places and thin in others, so in some places I'll have to thin them out, and in others I'll have to replant. On this string trellis I have some peas planted, but peas are one of those cool weather crops that won't do well in the heat. I mentioned that I breed irises. This is one of the irises that I've created. It's kind of neat knowing that the only place in the world that you can find this iris is in my yard. This ornamental sweet potato is called Sweet Caroline Sweetheart Lime. On the tag, this one was just labeled black. Here's another iris that I produced. This one is an offspring of that other one that I showed you. And here are a couple of its siblings. As you can see, they do look similar, but there are subtle differences. In the side yard, I planted one sun gold cherry tomato plant. I tried that one for the first time last year and really liked it. I put the peas in the grow bags up against the house so they'd be shaded half the day, and I'm hoping I can get some kind of a crop out of them since it got so hot. We have several varieties of drift roses around our yard. This one is called Apricot. It has lots of buds on it, and it finally has its first bloom. I really like drift roses a lot. That's why I have 5 different ones. This dwarf tomato is called Baronia, and it's one of my favorites of the dwarfs that I've tried so far. But for taste, my favorite dwarf tomato is Rosella Purple. This is a dwarf that I'm trying for the first time called Bundaberg Rumball. Have you ever wondered why there are ants on your peonies when they're getting ready to bloom? It's an example of mutualism. The ants and the peonies benefit from the relationship, and neither one of them are harmed. The ants get some nectar to eat, and in return they protect the peonies from aphids and other harmful insects. Once the peony flowers are in full bloom, the ants will leave and go on about their way. Even though the myth has been around for a long time, peonies do not require ants in order to bloom. I wanted to show you guys just how beautiful my sister-in-law's irises are this year. She has a gorgeous flower garden. Everything is going pretty well in our garden. I hope everything is going great in yours. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.